Good evening, everyone. Sorry for the late start. We're trying to figure something out, but couldn't. So we're just going to roll with it. So thank you for joining me. And today we have Jeffry Hayes. He's the Assistant Scenic, see, I'm tongue-tied already. Assistant Regional
Regional
Scenic,
Scenic Rivers Manager.
Regional,
There you
yes,
go.
for Northeast Ohio. Um, so why don't you go ahead and take it away?
All right, will do. Um, okay, so hi everyone. As Heather said, I'm Jeffrey Hayes. I'm the Assistant Regional Scenic River Manager for Northeast Ohio. Before we get into the talk today, I just want to point out my contact information on this slide. Throughout the presentation, if you have questions, I'm sure there will be time at the end. But if you think of anything later that you'd like to reach out to me about, or if any of the ways that any of the things I'm going to talk about sort of pique your interest, feel free to reach me there. So today I'm going to talk about the Ohio Wild and Scenic Rivers program, our history, and the role of community. First, I'll start with a program overview, and this will sort of also be sprinkled throughout, but I'll cover some of the history, some of the things pertaining to the Scenic River Law, some of the impacts of the Scenic River program. I'll also talk about the Wild and Scenic Rivers in Northeast Ohio. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the Scenic Rivers community. I'll define who that community is, their role in the Ohio Scenic Rivers program, and how important they are. And then I'll mention a few ways that you can support the Ohio Scenic Rivers program, and then ways that you can participate in some of the things that we're doing as well. But overall, I hope to address essentially how to keep your scenic river scenic. Okay, so before we get into that, I want to just clear up what I find often is some misconception. I guess misconception is the right word, maybe not perfect, but the Ohio Department of Natural Resources is a very large department. We're made up of many sister agencies, from Division of Oil and Gas to Parks and Watercraft. I'm sure many of you have been to a state park in Ohio. So that's Division of Parks and Watercraft. We have law enforcement. You're probably familiar with the Ohio Division of Wildlife. But one of those divisions is the Division of Natural Areas and Preserves. And this is where the Ohio Wild and Scenic Rivers program calls home. Okay, so on your screen, you see a timeline of all major federal environmental legislation from 1900 to about 2016. And I like to show this because it really brings into perspective sort of, the age of the Ohio Scenic Rivers program. It was created with the passing of the Ohio Scenic Rivers Act in February of 1968. And so this red bar indicates that creation date. And then the green bar represents the passing of the National Wild and Scenic Rivers Act, which occurred in October of 1968, so later that year. But I like to show this to really highlight the fact that the Ohio Scenic Rivers program was sort of at the forefront of the environmental movement, and especially the river preservation movement. And you can see over here in this the black box, or the box with the black border. The US EPA was created in 1970, and Ohio EPA was created in 1972. So this is something that that we in the Ohio Scenic Rivers program are really proud of. And this just is another way to to look at that. On the axis to the left is the number of laws, and then the horizontal axis there is our years. So you can see sort of the number of environmental laws and regulations over time. And again, this red bar shows the Ohio Scenic Rivers creation date, essentially, in that inflection when things really start to take off. So this is why that happened, and this is I'm sure everyone here you've probably seen this picture, this exact picture, but if not, you're familiar with the Cuyahoga River fires. There were many fires on the Cuyahoga River, and these captured national media attention. But I don't want to, blame Cleveland or the Cuyahoga River. There were fires on other rivers across the country. The Buffalo River caught on fire. The Rouge River caught on fire as well. And there were many rivers that were known to be some of the most polluted waters in the state or in the country. And so the Cuyahoga was not unique in that respect. Our rivers nationally have really taken a beating over time. Luckily, many of them are starting to look a lot better, and there are lots of success stories at this point. And so, but this really, sparked a fire in people's hearts to begin preserving rivers and thinking about rivers as their own, and therefore becoming motivated to protect them. And so that's where the Ohio Scenic Rivers program sort of came into its own. And the mission of our program is to work cooperatively with local governments, businesses, landowners, nonprofit organizations, and other state and federal agencies to protect the aquatic resources and terrestrial communities dependent on healthy riparian habitats. And when you're looking at this, you can really see, if you start to break this mission down, that this is a very community-oriented program. We work cooperatively with local governments, businesses, and so on. But then we have the word community or communities is actually mentioned later in the mission, but in reference to aquatic resources and terrestrial communities. And so this is where this interaction between these two communities or two types of communities is really where the scenic rivers, well, it's often where river-related issues take place, where communities of people and rivers and communities of riparian organisms interact. And that's also one of the areas that we really have the ability to affect change. And so this is very important. So how do we do this? The Ohio Scenic Rivers program is tasked with a number of things. First being to designate rivers. We have advisory councils. We perform public project review. We have a stream quality monitoring program. We're land managers. We provide technical assistance to landowners. We support and involved in restoration projects. We do education and outreach, and we support research as well. So like I said, it all starts with designation. And again, this really starts with the community. So the first step in the designation of a river is that the Ohio Scenic Rivers program will receive some communication from that community that I've mentioned, with an interest in seeing their local river designated, and this often comes with some indication of local support. So that's kind of where it all starts. Once we receive that communication, a designation study and report is prepared. And based on this, the director will publish a notice of intent to designate a river, to inform and to bring the community in, so that they know what's going on. And then a series of public houses will be held. And this, again, is a way for those in the community to come and voice their support or their concerns and things like that. So it's a very important part of the process. And if everything goes well, the director will submit an entry into the director's journal, officially designating a river. And then after that, there is typically some sort of designation ceremony. And this is a time when members of the community can come together and celebrate that accomplishment and celebrate their river. So this authority to designate rivers in Ohio comes from the Ohio Revised Code, which I'm not going to read all of this. That would get rather boring. However, I do want to point out there are 3 words that show up all over this section of the Ohio Revised Code, and that is wild, scenic, or recreational. Here it is again, wild, scenic, or recreational. And then again, wild, scenic, or recreational. And this is really important. These are the categories that all state designated rivers are grouped into based on their characteristics. So they have to meet certain criteria to be considered a wild river versus a scenic or recreational. To define these terms, wild rivers, sort of the best of the best, are those that are free of impoundments, inaccessible except by trail, with watersheds essentially primitive and waters unpolluted, representing vestiges of primitive America. So these are places, these are rivers where you can hop in a canoe or a kayak and really get away from it all, so that you feel like you're just out there almost in a wilderness type setting or a backcountry type setting. Scenic are those that are free of impoundments, with watersheds still mostly primitive, but they are accessible in places by roads. And this makes up most of the rivers that are designated in the state. They belong to this category typically. And then there's recreational. These are still pretty high quality rivers that are readily accessible by road or railroad, have some development, and they may have undergone impoundment or other diversion in the past. So in Ohio, we have 15 designated wild, scenic, or recreational rivers. Of those 15, 4 of them are wild and scenic, 9 are scenic, and 2 are recreational systems. On this map that you see here, the ones with the green labels, those are the wild and scenic rivers. So you can see most of those are in Northeast Ohio primarily, and then the blue, those are the scenic rivers, and then the black labels are those that are recreational systems. And when I say designated rivers, what I mean really are designated stream segments. In most cases, there are some exceptions here, but in most cases we designate stream segments. So that amounts to about 27 segments across the state. And they have to meet the criteria for designation and have local support. So there certainly could be streams out there, and we know there are streams out there that don't have, that haven't been designated, that certainly meet the criteria for designation. But that key phrase, local support, we have to have the community and communities involved. Overall, the Ohio Scenic Rivers program protects 830 river miles across the state. 3 of our state designated streams are designated nationally under the National Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. And then all of these rivers are grouped into 5 regions. And these are covered by approximately 12 staff. And this can change from year to year, but in general, we have 2 staff per region. And in Northeast Ohio, which is the region that I cover, that includes the Chagrin River, the Upper Cuyahoga River, the Grand River, the Ashtabula, and Conneaut Creek. And you'll notice Pymatuning Creek is on here as well. I get a lot of questions about this one in terms of, why don't I cover Pymatuning Creek? Well, that's actually an Ohio River tributary. And so that's covered by our East Region Scenic Rivers Manager. So I only cover the 5 state designated rivers that are Lake Erie tributaries in Northeast Ohio. All right, so now I kind of want to take you through each of those 5 rivers, just give you a few points about them, talk about why they are why they are unique, and just really highlight the quality of these rivers. So the Chagrin, we'll start there. This actually had 2 designations, one in July of 1979 when 49 river miles were designated as scenic. And then in November of 2002, an additional 22 river miles were designated as scenic. That first designation included the Aurora branch, the East branch, and then the main stem of the Chagrin River. And then some additional mileage on the main stem was added in 2002 for a total of 71 river miles protected under this designation. And on the map here, you can see the Chagrin River watershed. The portion of the river that is in pink is colored pink. That is the designated section. So again, the Chagrin River is a very high quality stream. I mean, look at this photo. This appears to be just, early fall. And some of the great things about the Chagrin River is that it supports over 90 species of bird that utilize the Chagrin River corridor, 49 species of fish, one being the state endangered American brook lamprey. And the Chagrin River is one of the few streams statewide that can support populations of this species. We also have the state endangered Ohio native brook trout. There are only a few streams remaining in the state with Ohio native brook trout, and they're all in the Chagrin watershed. So it makes this river system incredibly important. Moving on to the Upper Cuyahoga Scenic River. This was designated in June of 1974 with 25 river miles designated as scenic. On the map here, you can see that the purple portion of the river is the designated section, the scenic section. And there's a lot more of the Cuyahoga River that has not been designated to date. This river hosts around 50 species of fish, includes a lot of rare animals. And if you really want to get a feel for what the river looks like, you can visit the location where this photo was taken. This is Eldon Russell Park, one of the Geauga Park District parks. And this is a great place to go canoeing, paddling, wildlife viewing, and all of those outdoor pursuits. So I encourage you to get out there and take a look at that. Here we have the Grand, Wild, and Scenic River. This river carries 2 designations or dual designation, wild and scenic. This was designated in January of 1974. The wild segment is about 23 river miles, and the scenic segment is about 33 river miles, for a total of 56 miles designated as wild and scenic. And on the map on the left, this is just to show you the counties that the Grand River watershed, the Grand River travels through. And then the map on the right, the green portion of the river that you see is the wild designation, and then the red is the scenic designation. The Grand Wild and Scenic River has a number of rare animals. It's in the upper portions, it's characterized by swamp forests of elm, ash, maple, pine, pin oak, swamp white oak. In the lower sections, mostly in the wild segment, are steeply incised walls of chagrin shale with some unique bluff plant communities. And fun fact, the Grand River has the most aquatic diversity of any Lake Erie tributary. So it's pretty cool and a pretty special place. This is another one you can paddle, depending on where you go, almost any time of year. Next, we have the Ashtabula Scenic River. This was designated in October of 2008. This includes the main stem, the east branch, and the west branch. And on this map, it's all of the dark blue that you see there, the dark blue lines. And that amounts to 46 total river miles designated as scenic. Next, well, I guess continuing with the Ashtabula, it hosts 40 rare plants in the watershed, and the river itself has 80 species of fish. In fact, the word Ashtabula, or the name, comes from the Algonquin for river of many fish. It is also home to the state endangered northern brook lamprey and other organisms. But that's a pretty interesting fish. Also, notable species in the area are sometimes black bears and every now and again a fisher. So moving on to Conneaut Creek, the Conneaut Creek Wild and Scenic River. This was designated in October of 2005 with the wild segment being 16.4 river miles and the scenic segment just over 5 river miles for a total of 22 river miles designated. So on this map here, the pink line, that is the wild segment, and this orangish yellowish line, that is the scenic section. So Conneaut Creek has a drainage basin of about 190 square miles. And I bring this up because only about 40 of those are in Ohio. Most of the Conneaut Creek watershed is in Pennsylvania. It hosts about 30 unique plants and plant communities. A lot of them carry some state or federal listing. It has about 78 species of fish, 32 species of amphibians and reptiles across the watershed, and again hosts some other rare animals like black bears and fishers and more. Okay, so those are all of the wild and scenic rivers in Northeast Ohio that are covered under the Northeast region. And so now we're getting to the part of the talk where we really want to start breaking down and defining who I mean when I say the Scenic River community. So let's define what I mean. The Ohio Scenic River program relies on those who are a member of each of these 4 groups. These are pretty broad groups, but those who have an interest in the watershed, whether you work, you play, you live, or you own land in the watershed, And then narrowing that down, the next group are landowners in the watershed. Narrowing even further are landowners that own river frontage. This is an important part of the community as well. And then there are those interested in a deeper knowledge of their river and seek a hands-on approach to monitoring its health. Okay, so starting with the first group, those who have some stake in the watershed, those who have an interest in the watershed. Every scenic river is required to have an advisory council. And this is required by law under the Ohio Revised Code, section 1547.84. And these are made up of, again, one per designated river with up to 10 members, each serving for about 3 years. They can renew after that, but those terms are a standard 3-year term. And they really represent the local interest or the local voice in the watershed. And those councils meet quarterly. And so each of the councils are made up of a broad range of members and types of people of many different professions and backgrounds and things like that. And diverse perspectives really do help us protect the Scenic River. And so we have on some of our councils, we have farmers and school teachers, government officials, representatives from local watershed groups, park districts, hunters, anglers. So many different backgrounds, many different voices. And so this is a very important part of our program. And I'm just going to pause here for a minute, and you'll see why in a moment. But one of the other tasks that the Ohio Scenic Rivers program is responsible for under the Ohio Revised Code, section 1547.82, is review and approving public projects. So our review and approval authority is triggered when a project meets those 3 criteria that you see listed there in green. So it has to be a public project, or those that receive taxpayer dollars to complete. It has to be within 1,000 feet of a state designated wild, scenic, or recreational river, and it has to be outside of city limits. And so if it violates one of those criteria, then we have no regulatory authority there. So when it does, when a project does not meet all 3 of those, we rely on the community. In fact, our advisory councils play a vital role in reviewing some of these projects and providing feedback. And really, again, this is the local voice where members of the community can come and provide recommendations on a project, or if they have concern for the project, we can work through that. And so again, advisory councils are a great way if you live, work, play, or whatever you do in a watershed, a scenic river watershed. This is a way for you to get involved in the process. We also have our stream quality monitoring program. This is a volunteer-based program that was created in 1983. Really, this is geared more towards those who want to have a deeper knowledge of the ecology of their river, whether it's an angler learning about the aquatic macroinvertebrates that might improve their fishing, or just understanding how the fish that they like to target, how they live and survive in these streams. Just for that deeper understanding. Those that like to get their hands wet, literally, are great folks to volunteer for this program. But its basis is in the varying sensitivity of aquatic macroinvertebrates to chemical and physical water quality. So we can use those as an indicator of the health and ecology of streams. And that's what this program is really set up to do, in part. It's also a great way to reach individuals who have an interest in these types of things, but have never really had an opportunity to get involved or learn more, and really are seeking that hands-on experience. Each scenic river region has a stream quality monitoring coordinator whose role is in part to recruit volunteers and to hold educational programs to teach volunteers about what's going on in their stream. And so how does this work? We have volunteers all across the state, and each of those volunteers is assigned a reference site. And for this program, that reference site revolves around riffles. And these are those areas where you walk down to the stream and you'll see areas where water is moving swiftly over rocks. It's relatively shallow. These are the riffles that I'm talking about. And they go out 3 times per year to collect a sample using, in this image, you can see this net, this piece of equipment that resembles a net. This is a seine. They're equipped with this equipment, and they use this to collect that sample. And then from that sample, each site is scored from excellent to poor based on the presence and the types of organisms that are being found. This form on the right is what our volunteers fill out and send to us, and we can use this to identify trends, but mostly it really helps us identify when there are issues that we need to go out and investigate further. And this has certainly happened in the past. Okay, so before we go into the next section, I just want to clarify another misconception, a common misconception. Under the Ohio Revised Code, section 1547.81, the Ohio Scenic Rivers program has no regulatory authority on private property and within city limits. And this is very important, especially as we move forward in this talk, so that you can really understand why we need all of the individuals in a scenic river watershed to contribute to the protection of their scenic river. Okay, so looking at this map, this is a section of the Grand Wild and Scenic River. Right in the middle, it's probably very difficult to see, but right in the middle is the Harpersfield Covered Bridge. I'm not sure many of you may have been there before, but the Harpersfield Covered Bridge is essentially the dividing line between the scenic section and the wild section, with the wild section being downstream of the bridge. So, there's a couple bridge crossings in here, and I mentioned that public project review process. So we certainly, in the Scenic Rivers program, have the ability to impact the scenic rivers in that way, but that's pretty limited. I mean, you count the number of bridges in this map, and there aren't many. And that's a lot of our public project reviews do amount to reviews for bridges. So, there's not a ton we can do here. And then I mentioned that we're land managers. So this yellow block or sort of almost rectangular parcel, that is the the Wright-Davis Scenic River area. This is publicly accessible. This is a piece of property that was purchased by the Ohio Scenic Rivers program to provide, actually it was donated, I think, to the Ohio Scenic Rivers program, and to provide access to the river. It's a really great place if you're ever interested to go take a hike. There's a hemlock ravine and things like that, and access to the river. So we can make management decisions on this piece of of property here, but that's about it. And then looking at the rest of the map, all of the red lines, of course, are property boundaries, and almost all of that is private property, privately owned property. And then if you zoom out, which I can't do here, but if you were to zoom out to the watershed scale, just the amount of land that has a direct impact on the Scenic River is great. The land that is privately owned along the river is, it's extremely important. But the land at the watershed scale, the acreage, the total acreage, vastly outnumbers the number of acres, of those in private ownership along the river. And so everyone really has an impact here, and perhaps more so than the Ohio Scenic Rivers program. And so for those who live along the river, you are very important keepers of the river. And this is because riparian buffers are extremely important to protecting the health, the ecology of your scenic river. So on the left here, you have a healthy riparian buffer. And then on the right, you have an unhealthy riparian buffer. And I'm going to break down this image a little bit if you've never seen this before. But on the healthy side, you see that there's various. Well, first of all, there's a lot of vegetation. You don't have any exposed stream banks. You have variety in vegetation, from grasses to shrubs to small trees to large trees. And this is really important, especially when you compare it to the other side, the unhealthy side. Not that agriculture is unhealthy, but what this is really highlighting is there's no vegetation along the river. So there's a road on the stream bank, there's exposed soil on the stream bank. It is very steep. There's little vegetation. And so when you have little vegetation, a lot of times overland flow or runoff flows directly into the river. When you have this vegetation, it provides a buffer that essentially prevents, various land use activities from impacting the river as much. So water is able to infiltrate the soil, flow through the roots, and slowly make its way into the river, rather than that quick discharge from the landscape. And here you see, this is a diagram of a riparian forest. Many of you have probably seen this type of diagram before, but this is essentially showing you how water makes its way into a river. And it really illustrates what we mean by a riparian buffer. So according to this diagram, it's 50 to 100 feet in width would be a desirable riparian buffer. I say as much riparian buffer as can be tolerated is ideal, but certainly a minimum of 75 feet is best, with the Ohio Scenic Rivers program recommending 120 feet on state designated rivers. Okay, so for those who don't live on the river, maybe you own land or rent land or live somewhere else in the watershed, there are things that you can do too. So you may have very little control on things like riparian buffers, but you have an important role to play. The things that we do in the watershed affect the quality of the river. And so one of those things that you can do is avoid excessive use of fertilizer. And when you do use fertilizer, make sure you read all of the instructions and the warnings. If you can, find fertilizer that does not include a phosphorus component. Time your applications appropriately so that it has the maximum time to be worked into the soil rather than washing off the landscape and into your neighborhood stream or storm drains and things like that. Also, pay attention to how much you're applying. Make sure that you're applying the appropriate amount for your soil type, and a soil test is a good way to find out how much you need to add. So that's one thing that you can do. In this image, you see a stream. This is certainly not a scenic river. Looking at this, I can tell it's unhealthy because the amount of erosion that's taking place, the amount of water that's flowing through. You see the culvert at the top of the stream. There's no vegetation other than lawn around this, and it's very close to this house. And so things you can do in an area like this, and you may have one of these streams in your neighborhood, but while this is not a scenic river or a scenic stream, these types of streams are everywhere across the landscape, and they have an impact on your larger rivers, because at some point this water makes its way into your large rivers, and when this is a scenic river, this can be extremely detrimental to the quality. So some of the things that you can do here would be to plant some vegetation along the stream. This is a great place for pollinator habitat and things like that. You can avoid using heavy equipment such as lawnmowers within 10 feet of the stream bank. This destabilizes the soils and causes even more erosion. Next, you could avoid putting yard waste in and around streams. This is nutrient-rich material and has the potential to cause algal blooms that persist for very long times, and so this can be detrimental to your stream and certainly your local river. You can make sure you clean up any spills around your property. You know, keep your paved surfaces clean. If you change the oil in the driveway, lay down a piece of cardboard or make sure you select the appropriate location to do that work, and dispose of it properly. Don't dispose of these types of things on your property. You know, almost all of these types of chemicals, oil, and they all have appropriate ways to dispose of them. So make sure you utilize those. You may reconsider how you wash your car. You know, this image here shows folks going down to the river, enjoying a nice, probably a summer day, I would imagine. You know, they're recreating in the river, and at the same time, they're washing their cars right in the river. And nobody is doing this today. At least, you know, there's probably some exceptions somewhere out there, but you know, we're probably all sitting here saying, now, why would we ever do something like that? But if you wash your car like this, it can be, sometimes it can be equivalent to that photo on the right. So this water is, you know, flowing down the driveway and into a storm drain, and oftentimes this water is going to make it into your river at some point. So things that you can do to prevent this is, you know, use less water, select an appropriate location to wash your car where the water can drain into the soil rather than go directly into a storm drain. You can use biodegradable soaps. That's a good way to limit your impact to the river when washing your car, or use commercial car washes. A lot of them even advertise today that they reuse a certain percentage of their water. So this is a great way to have an impact on your river for the better. You can avoid or reduce the use of salt on your property. So this publication was put out by the Cuyahoga Soil and Water Conservation District, and it includes ways that you can alter your usage pattern. You know, make sure you're using the right stuff, the right amount, the right location, using it at the right time. But road salt can have a huge impact on the aquatic ecology in your neighborhood stream and ultimately in your scenic river. Keep an eye on your septic systems. You know, no matter where you live in the watershed, if you have a septic system, make sure it is getting, not failing inspection. So do visual checks, fix any issues or leaks, just make sure it's functioning properly. And if you can, eliminate straight pipe discharges into any stream. This allows for the direct discharge of untreated water into your stream and your scenic river. This especially applies if you're a landowner or you recreate on rivers. Leave the large woody debris in your stream. It's tempting to remove all of that, but this is actually part of a healthy stream. It provides habitat. It reduces stream velocity and allows for water to have time to move slower through a system, so that nutrients and pollutants and things like that can be, continue to be cycled through. And it helps maintain backwaters, and those are important things for stream organisms. And I would only remove these if you are noticing significant erosion or you're experiencing flooding that damages infrastructure. These might be reasons that you'd want to do that. Maybe just give the large woody debris a chance. You can avoid building in floodplains. It's tempting to do. These tend to be flatter areas, but they also come with inherent risks, and not only risks to people, but risks to water quality, and certainly the scenic characteristics of your river. So when you're walking down the stream bank or floating down the river, these types of things affect how you feel, how you interact with the river. In short, your actions matter. So whether you're right next to a stream, right next to your scenic river, or you're up in the at the very highest point in your watershed, your actions matter. And that's why we rely on the Scenic Rivers community to really participate and to do what they can using those methods I've mentioned, but also more to benefit their scenic river and ultimately keep it scenic. And this is a pretty picture. I love this this image here, but really, again, this is just to highlight the fact that we want to keep our rivers looking like this. Okay, so now I'm going to get into some of the conservation impacts that we see when rivers are designated. Well, so I've broken these into two groups. So we have a group of things that we predict will happen, that we see sometimes, but then there are those, and so that's highlighted by this dotted green vertical line next to those 3 bullet points. And then there's the solid green vertical line next to the other 3 bullet points. So the dotted line is our predicted outcomes, and the solid line is what we often see. There's the potential for funding to increase for conservation projects overall. When a scenic river is designated, that really brings attention to that river. It highlights its importance, and this can be used in applications to fund conservation projects, and to justify why it is so important to have that funding to do some project in the watershed. Property values can increase. Local businesses can see more business when people come to see this special river. The threat of environmental problems, they always remain, but our ability to address them increases. Our monitoring frequency increases. We have, like I said, all of our volunteers are out there collecting data and macroinvertebrate samples and looking at water quality. And then we have, Ohio EPA, they do great work, but because they are surveying and sampling every river and stream in the state, they often can't get to a stream, sometimes it's 10, 15 years before they can get out. So we can really help there and kind of fill in that gap on select rivers across the state. So monitoring frequency can increase. Recreational opportunities increase, and they can increase for a lot of reasons, but one of which is that the Ohio Scenic Rivers program provides public access to these scenic rivers. So we often purchase properties to allow anglers to access the stream, and for folks to take a hike and to participate in activities like birding and just really getting out there and spending time in nature, let alone providing points of access for paddlers, canoers, and kayakers to get in and out of the river. So these are some of the conservation impacts. And then there are recreational impacts. There was a study performed in 2022 by the Ohio State University. They looked at 45 sites over 43 river miles, documented 806,000 trips on the river in some way, and that averaged about $12 per trip. They documented a total recreational value for visitors as much as $10.1 million per year if you include canoe livery trips. And they also documented around $4.8 million worth of commercial activity for local businesses, which amounted to about $111,000 per river mile per year. With the largest number of trips and highest value lying in hiking and walking, with bike riding second, followed by fishing and paddling and birding. And so is this part of the designation effect? We don't really know. The Little Miami is actually the oldest scenic river in the state. It was the first to be designated. It's also the longest, but we have no before information related to these metrics. So if there's any grad students out there, that'd be a potentially good project if you want to follow scenic rivers and do some before-after studies on how designation impacts the local economy, recreation, and things like that. Okay, so what can you do to participate? So as I mentioned, we provide a number of educational programs throughout the year. This is our calendar for our stream quality monitoring workshops, where you can come and learn about the aquatic macroinvertebrates, the things swimming around in your stream. And we have one scheduled per scenic river. So on each of our 5 Northeast scenic rivers. And these are the dates. You're welcome to return to this in the recording, take a screenshot or whatever you'd like. But if you'd like to attend any of these, the contact information is up in the upper right corner. You can reach out to Becky Donaldson at that email address. We also can schedule private events if you have a large group or a unique group that would be sort of better suited for a more private educational experience. We can do that as well. We also have a number of hikes and educational programming in the riparian zone. So another part really part of the stream, but not in the stream. So we have spring wildflower hikes and birding hikes. We also have an invasive plant work day on Conneaut Creek scheduled for this year. So you can find this information here. And again, you'd contact Becky Donaldson for more information on those. You can join us, which we plan to participate in all of these annual cleanups on 3 of our 5 rivers. There's the Ashtabula River cleanup, which is occurring on April 15th. The Conneaut Creek cleanup on May 6th, the Grand River cleanup on May 13th. Please reach out to me if you'd like to participate. These were not organized by the Ohio Scenic Rivers program, but by our partners who we greatly appreciate and would love to see get a boost in attendance, really so we can be as effective as possible when we get out there to clean up the river. So if you'd like to be put in touch with these groups, you can do a Google search for them, but you can also reach out to me and I can put you in contact with the organizers. Really important, if you are interested in staying in the know when it comes to Ohio Scenic Rivers, if you're interested in learning more about other opportunities where you can actually get out there and participate, please consider joining the Ohio Scenic Rivers Association. And you can do that following this address here. This is a great group. They also have a Facebook group and other social media, so be sure to check them out as well. You can support the Ohio Scenic Rivers program by through donations. So you can remember us at tax time. A very important part of our funding is the our tax checkoff fund, which supports nature preserves and scenic rivers on your individual income tax return. So just check that box, and you can donate as much as you would like, and that greatly helps us out. You can purchase a Scenic Rivers license plate, which you can see here on screen. You may have seen these around town. You may have one yourself, but those are another great way to support Scenic Rivers by providing funding to allow us to provide more education, signage, and just do more conservation. You can donate by mail here, or you can donate online by following that link or using the QR code. And here, actually, I'll start this over here. But that's pretty much all I have today. But I do want to leave you with an inspiring video, hopefully that will motivate you to get involved with us, to reach out and learn what you can do, what more you can do. If you're interested in joining an advisory council or becoming a Scenic Rivers volunteer, please reach out to me, and we will get you set up and active in our Scenic Rivers community. So again, this final slide is a video, hopefully that inspires you and motivates you and shows you some of the work that we're doing. All right, thank you again for tuning in tonight. really appreciate the ability to speak to you all, and I can certainly take any questions that you might have at this time.
All right, I have a few in the little question area. One is fertilizer with phosphate also illegal in Ohio?
Is it?
Yeah, is it? I guess.
So that's a question, or are you telling
It's
me?
more like a question, but I mean, they have a question mark, but so they're wanting to know, is it illegal to have fertilizer with phosphate in it?
You know, I'm not sure, but it's always a good idea if possible, and you're going to use fertilizer, select those that are you know, not inorganic or synthetic to use. But I definitely would need to look into that more.
Okay, yeah. Does increase recreational opportunities when a river is designated actually have negative impacts to the river?
That is a great question, and it's that is an area where we need to find a balance and strike that balance. There are certainly situations in my own experience traveling a scenic river and seeing, you know, not even being able to get a picture of someone without another paddler in the image. So it's certainly something that we need to watch out for and find a balance. Look for ways to find that balance. You know, the good news is and you know, I don't know this for sure, but possibly the more scenic rivers we have, the more spread out some of that pressure can be. Um, and so, yes, that is a great question and something that we are often concerned with. And you know, we often you know, see negative impacts from recreation sometimes as well, whether it's increased you know, litter or things like that. You know, so that's a great question, and we always just try to find that balance.
All right, there was somebody that missed the first part where you had your contact info, but I
Okay,
can send that out to them
yeah, if you want to put that
tomorrow. So
in the
I'll just
chat,
send,
or
yeah.
yeah.
It's GoToWebinar's weird. We can chat, like me and you, but I can't chat
Oh, okay,
um with the people. So I definitely will put that in. I will write myself a note and put it in the email
great.
that I send out tomorrow. So I will do that. And somebody wants to know how they can obtain a copy of the Ohio State or Ohio University's study that you talked about.
You know, you can Google that. That's how I find it every time. I always mean to save it to my computer, and inevitably I end up closing the window. And so every time I have to go find it again, and it's very easy to find just by doing an internet search. Um, so if you get that title, watch the recording, or maybe Heather, if you want to send that out as well. When you send my contact information, just the title and the authors, so that everyone can get a copy of that.
Yeah. And then a question about the Little Miami's value as an outdoor recreation. I'm trying to think where, I'm guessing they're asking the Little Miami River.
Um, Asking what that recreation is like, or if we
Yeah,
know what
I'm
the
guessing, but like the importance of the value of having it.
I don't know specific. I can't answer that specifically, but you know, a lot of rivers, not just scenic rivers, have recreational importance. You know, there's you know, some great rivers that even I like to go to that may one day be scenic rivers. And I think I may have mentioned that before, but one of the important things, if you don't live on a scenic river, um, not, this doesn't apply to the Little Miami, of course, but if there's a river that that you live near that is not scenic, you know, there are ways for you to get involved in protecting that river as well, so that one day maybe it will meet those designation criteria and can be can be scenic. So, and see some of those benefits. And it's just important, even more important, just that you do these things so that the river thrives.
All right, here's a good question that I'm kind of curious about because I have pets. Are pet safe de-icers as bad as regular salt?
Ooh, that is a good question. I have seen these. I don't personally own any pets or use. I don't purchase salt. I don't have a need for it, but I am not sure about that. But that is a really great question, something I'd like to know as well the next
Yeah,
time I present this. So
I definitely
I'm
use it very little when I do use it.
yeah,
It's mainly for my safety because I have fallen down
right.
my stairs with my dog, so it's no fun.
Yeah, right, right.
And then somebody wants to know if there's any current activities to designate any more river sections.
Yes, there are some rivers in the state that are being looked at. Um, you know, hopefully at some point that that information will come out and we can really highlight those. You know, again, there are lots of rivers in the state that meet the criteria for designation, and so you know, having that local support is incredibly important. But when that local support isn't there, those rivers often don't get designated. So yes, there's a lot of rivers that we would like to see designated, of course, and there are a couple that are being more intensively thought about now.
Okay, that's definitely good. Well, that's all the questions that we have for tonight. So I think we can go ahead and wrap it up. All
Okay.
right. Thanks everyone for joining, and hopefully maybe I'll see you again. Thank you, Jeff.
Yep. Thank you.
Bye.